Hello and welcome to me reacting to part 3 of the Mujin coverage of the Love and Deep Space chaos that kind of went through about Valko and just kind of that whole situation. So I did record this portion about 2 days after the first two portions, so I don't entirely recall exactly what we had gone over, but I believe we at least talked about how there had been like hate stuff sent to the building of Infold, how Infold had basically had the government come after them for some numbers and stuff like that. So if you didn't just go watch part 2, I would encourage you to at least watch part 2. Part 1 is the history of the making and Love and Deep Space actually kind of exploding in the market, but part 1 is actually the chaos of what happened with the Valko incident. So definitely go watch that before you continue this part. So with that being said, let's head on forward with the rest of this, I guess.
Internet than yours, using an entirely different language. But global players, as well as many Chinese players, weren't simply going to sit idly by watching their favorite game get destroyed right in front of them. And so, a global movement would be born overnight. A movement that is unprecedented in terms of scale that I have never seen before.
And I think this
Barely
is where we
24
left
hours after Paper Game's very unpopular announcement saying that they were going to remove Valko from the game, a new topic would start trending on Twitter with hundreds of thousands of posts within 24 hours and millions of posts within 1 week. The hashtags Valko is loved and we love
I will say it was absolutely insane to see this happen.
Valko would go absolutely viral, and global players would demand that he come back home. As I mentioned earlier, this was overblown, and the audience for Love and Deep Space wasn't stupid. Oh, boo-hoo, he snuck into your home? Well, what about the other love interests? Silas kidnaps you, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, everyone, like, there's a lot of people that were like really upset about the whole like Valko breaks into your home and stuff like that, and I'm like, I could name you some really bad things that the other 5 guys did, so.
Raphael and Caleb stalk you, and one of them is your adopted brother that you grew up with as a kid, and then later on, when you both grow up, you're there just scissoring like chimpanzees in heat. This just didn't make any sense. And while yes, 731 was a really stupid mistake, it was in the game for 2 months before people somehow now finally noticed and took offense to it.
I don't know. So there is some speculation and talk about the fact that this was actually reported when it came out, but that Infold did nothing about it. But I'm not entirely sure. As well, it's one of those that people also think that it might not have been reported back then, but that it got reported with this in order to bring more fire to the Valko situation for the people who wanted Valko gone. I don't know for certain. I've seen 2 different theories, and I wasn't really a part of that portion of it, and I didn't know about the numbers. Again, I think you guys saw in my last video, I don't even have it unlocked, so I can't see it yet. So do with that information what you will.
It was overblown, it felt staged, and it just didn't make any sense. But Paper Games had made their decision. They removed Valko and actually took this seriously. And so the consequences immediately took place.
It was Genshin Google Classroom all over again. Probably worse, actually.
If they thought that these toxic Chinese players were their biggest problem, they had no idea what they were dealing with. A huge chunk of silent Chinese players that weren't toxic and crazy would be very disappointed in Valko's cancellation. In fact,
and I will say a lot of Chinese players did actually like come out of the woodworks whenever he was canceled to finally be like, hey, like, we weren't saying anything, but like we do like him, like we do want him. Like that loud minority were the ones who basically like boycotted him.
You can track revenue that the game makes in China, and while there were many people frustrated over Valko looking Western or gay or whatever, their revenue would only start taking a dip after they had canceled.
Which is wild to me that they think he like looks Western or gay or whatever. I'm sitting here like, you do have a global audience, and the global audience does actually like have a decent amount of revenue in this game. And so therefore, like, I'm not terribly surprised that they tried having at least a little bit of a Western look for him.
Valko, showing us 2 things. The first being that they might have underestimated how many Chinese players actually liked Valko, and the second being that maybe Western players also underestimated how many Chinese players were going to boycott this game because of the whole 731 situation.
I think everybody underestimated
Within just a week,
everybody.
they would lose 50% of how much they would usually make. Within less than 24 hours, they would lose over 100,000 followers on multiple platforms, and eventually they'd lose over 100,000 on TikTok, and would lose so many on Instagram that they would end up privating their profile.
And I do remember seeing all of that happen in real time. It was absolutely absurd. Like, I didn't even witness that happen with Genshin, with the Sumeru and Natlan releases, and people wanting to boycott those two nations.
They would also get absolutely review bombed on the Apple App Store with a rating that's now below 3 out of 5. And on Google Play, their rating is...
I will say, are they currently... I don't think they're currently below 3, because I did actually look whenever that was happening. People were like, oh my gosh, they're super low on the Apple Store. And I'm like, where? Ooh, no, they did. They dropped. I'll take a screenshot of my phone currently. It's 317 right now, and I will put it on the screen here so you guys can see it. So, bonkers.
Is now 1.3 out of 5. One of the most abysmal ratings I've ever seen. Hell, people were so pissed that they brought back a good old tradition that had occurred during the first anniversary of Genshin, which was not only review bomb the game, but also review bomb Google Classroom. If bad reviews start reaching Google Classroom, you know that this controversy is massive. At the same time, you'd have a petition on iPetitions get made that has over...
Absolutely cracks me up that we all, like, from the gacha communities, for whatever reason, we're like, well, we're not doing enough damage on the actual app itself. Let's go to Google Classroom. Like, what?
240,000 signatures to bring back Valko, and you'd also have a change.org petition with almost 100,000 signatures now, with change.org's own social media page making a tweet about it, bringing more attention towards it. One Levadices player would take this even further and report the game to the Consumer Protection Agency of their country, Mexico.
So yeah, I did know about that. The reason why they reported it was because it's false advertisement. They're trying to go after Involt because they marketed this character who is now no longer available. Like, you can't get this character, which is basically it's false advertisement. They were trying to get new players with Valko, and so there were like some people who were like, I just downloaded this game for this character, and like, where is he? And I'm like, oh shit.
Because this was a false promise in their opinion. This is a product, something was advertised and then withdrawn, which makes it false advertising.
It is false
All
advertising.
of Love and D-Space social media would get flooded with hashtags such as Bring Valko Back. Even their ads on TikTok would get absolutely flooded. Compared to this, what was going on in China was nothing. Everything here was being absolutely invaded. And to show the developer that this was financially a really bad mistake on their end, someone would create a website in which you could enter how much money you spent on the game and attach a message to it. So far, the amount of cumulative money that was spent in the past by players who chose to support Valko is now over $15 million. I mean, look at all these messages behind that huge number. They were screaming to Paper Games that they were making a mistake here. But while the frustration is understandable and their socials being brigaded was to be expected, what really stood out here was how a big chunk of the global audience decided to protest. While Valko haters were busy sending manure and other things to the HQ of Paper Games, the global audience that wanted Valko in the game decided to instead use their money for good.
Which is what we always say, vote with your wallet. Stop paying for things if you want something. Now, to be clear, there are some people who are still like, oh, I'll pay for like a small thing here and there and whatnot. And there are some people who are a little bit more ambivalent. I'm a little bit more ambivalent, if I'm being completely honest with you. Would I like for Valko to come back? Yes, absolutely. I think that it was a poor decision to take him back after they had showed him. So I am still in the hopes that like they will do something to bring him back later. But yeah, no, the Lads players did the right thing, and they 100% they voted with their wallets. And I hope Mujin brings it up here. If not, I will try and find it and put it at the end of this video, because it is insane how far down the ranks Love a Deep Space dropped just this past month.
Would fundraise enough money to buy a billboard in Times Square saying Bring Valko Back, and this billboard crowdfunding strategy would occur all over the world, in New York, in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in Thailand, hell, even in Peru. This was them truly showing solidarity between each other, even though they came from such different countries and regions. But I mentioned this audience using their money for good, and that's exactly what they did in Valko's name. They would donate to a women's shelter in Canada and say that this donation is from Valko. They would donate over $44,000 for the Guangxi flood relief in Valko's name as well. This was a place that was hit by severe flooding in China, and these Valko enjoyers were pretty much helping them out.
I mean, I'm glad that people are using their money for good, but I'm just going to say it, and people can be mad at me for it. I do think it's a little crazy that people are like, oh, now I'm going to use my money to, donate to this or do that and stuff like that in this character's name that I want back in a video game. Like, I don't know. It seems odd to me.
11 Deep Space player that normally spent $1,500 every 2 weeks on the game decide to instead use that money to feed over 400 dogs in 3 different shelters, while again doing so in Valko's name.
Again, it's one of those that I'm like, okay, so you spent all this money that you would have spent on Valko and now you're spending it on benefiting society. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those that I'm like, to some degree, like, I feel bad, but I'm kind of like, well, you're spending money in good places. Does that mean that that's now going to stop if Valko comes back? Are you going to stop donating that? Like, do you guys get what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's weird to me. Again, it's like, I'm glad that it's happening. I'm glad that people are like donating for good causes, but for a fictional character, it just, I don't know. And again, that's just me. That's just who I am. Like, I'm one of those that if I'm going to donate, I'm just going to donate. I'm not going to donate because somebody did or did not give me something that I wanted in a video game.
Dogs in 3 different shelters, while again doing so in Valko's name. There are so many examples like this, with donations coming from global players for Chinese causes like wildlife conservation, or uniting to save an endangered species, or raising money over $20,000 for wolf conservation because Valko's a half wolf guy, and also donating over 100 chocolate milk bars to 100 kids in Indonesia, all while using Valko's name and appearance, making him out to be a symbol of hope rather than a symbol that threatened women's safety like in China. All of this was done in the hope that on July 9th, when 6.0 had come out, Paper Games would change their minds. They would still decide to release Valko even though they cancelled him. And they would take this activism even IRL, because Love in Deep Space would have a booth in Anime Expo in the US. There, they'd have different cosplayers meant to represent every love interest. But unfortunately, it seemed like there was one booth meant for Valko that was cancelled last minute.
I do want to mention there was a cancellation of the 6th love interest. It sounded like there was an intention of him being there. However, after everything that happened, I think they actually canceled it for the cosplayer's safety. I know that some people were going to be upset about that and be like, oh, we wanted Valko and like this shows that like you guys don't like. I get it. But at the same time, like we know that there were people who hated Valko, and I think it was a smart idea for the safety of that cosplayer for them to not have Valko at that expo. So it's one of those that I'm like, does it suck a little bit? Yes, but at the same time, like I would much rather know that that cosplayer got to go home and see their family and sleep that night rather than worry that something bad happened to them. So that's just my opinion.
So what did they do? Did they bring cow poop or a weapon? No. Instead, they'd go around asking people to pick their favorite lad by placing...
Which this went around for a while. Like this was in multiple expos from my understanding. So this was not just Anime Expo.
A star around them, and Valko would receive the most stars. This was again meant to showcase the staff that we want Valko back. But while they did make it to Anime Expo, on July 8th, they would start canceling different events that they were meant to attend. Like for example, an event that was meant to take place in Japan, saying, after carefully reviewing the event content in light of changes to the in-game content, so removing Valko, we have decided to cancel the event. On that same day, they would also announce the cancellation of a massive event scheduled for Bilibili World, a huge event in China. And so by now, this was attracting...
And again, I think this was actually a good decision to some degree because, and I'm sorry, I'm being flashbanged right now. Let me back up from my computer. But I think this was actually kind of a good decision because they were getting so much flack from the Valko cancellation, from just the Valko being announced and stuff like that. Like they were getting it from both sides. And so arguably they were never going to win. And canceling those two probably were due to some safety concerns. Like I know it sucks and it's upsetting and stuff like that, but at the same time, like they were really getting hit hard on both sides, the pro Valkos and the anti Valkos. And so it's one of those that if you can't win and you're kind of seeing a mob mentality, like I don't know, like I get it. I understand. Does it suck? Yes, but like I get it.
All sorts of global media publications, with Jing Daily publishing an article titled China's top otome game lost 70 million hearts in 10 days. Hell, even TV news channels were talking about this too. And hell, even Queso would talk about this somehow.
Which
a
is
chatter
wild
would
to
tell
me.
him about the drama. Queso would look into it and say, Love in Deep Space is wrong for scrapping its newest character, saying they didn't bring out the character because the fans said he was ugly. That's messed up.
Which I agree. It is kind of messed up that that happened. I do wish that, again, that it wasn't that he was canceled. I just wish that they would have said, hey, we're going to push him back. We're going to work on him a little bit more. We heard your guys' feedback. We heard your guys' concern. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can, get some more content out that you guys have been asking for and work on him a little bit more and flesh him out a little bit more. And then we will see you guys in a couple of months.
So look, all of this was meant to raise awareness, but also showcase to the Chinese government agencies that this game was not an element of chaos. It was an element of goodness. These donations in Valko's name were meant to spread positivity and goodness across the world. And to be honest, they did. Objectively speaking, that's exactly what they did. Instead of fighting fire with fire, the global audience decided to fight fire with good, with water. It was also done to show Paper Games just how much of a mistake they were making by listening to the toxic side of their fan base instead of the good side. The one that was willing to donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to charities in Valko's name was the one who was really being hurt with this. The hope was that on July 9th, Valko would still somehow show up when they would open the app after updating. But unfortunately for them, that day would end up being the darkest in this community's history. On July 9th, 2026, the 6.0 update would come out for 11 Deep Space. Many players downloaded it hoping to open the app and find Valko waiting for them there. Instead, they found nothing. No Valko, no new main.
I do want to say, I know some people were really, really hopeful that he was still going to come out on the 9th. I was pretty certain at that point he wasn't. I figured it was going to be one of those to where they were potentially going to either push him back or they were going to cancel him entirely. I was hoping for the former and not the latter, but I still think we don't have the answer on whether they are pushing him back or if they did actually cancel him entirely.
Story, just the new kitchen feature, and that was just about it. Some people would have issues downloading this update,
not even used,
and so
the
11
kitchen
Deep Space
feature
would make this post saying, today's update has concluded, while giving some pointers as to how to fix these errors, like reinstalling the game, for example. This would be the last post on their socials up until mid-July. And so everyone would take out their grievances right here. It would get over 17,000 replies. Again, ratioed multiple times with people in complete disbelief. How could you? Instead of listening to the good side of the community, people who are willing to put money where their mouth is and donate to good causes in Valko's name, how could you listen to the toxic people who send you literal cow shit to your offices? The global players felt like someone had put a knife in their back. And what didn't help was that this update was extremely buggy. I mean, there are certain things in here that my nightmares wouldn't even be able to conjure up. Like, what is this?
I saw so many things that were like, oh, this, look at this, look at that. It was absolutely, this is horrible. I'm gonna get that off my screen. I can't. That's fine. That one's a little bit better. But it was apparently it was incredibly buggy. I have not had any issues, but I also didn't try the kitchen or anything like that. I don't care about the home stuff. It's not my shtick. But yeah, just it's just crazy though, how bad it was, because they took so much out because of Valko that was going to be released and no longer being released. That's a lot of code in just a few days. There's no way they were going to get it all patched and proper and get it tested and everything else. It was to be expected, especially if Valko was taken out. It was to be expected.
Does this even happen? I don't even know what kind of code, how does this even occur? Here's my favorite glitch personally.
I love that one.
What the fuck is that?
I've seen that one.
Anyway, the first thing that players did after not seeing Valko was go to the love interest character selection screen and see whether the whole coming soon text was still there. And to their extreme disappointment, it wasn't. It seemed like Paper Games was intent on the promise of no more new characters. This was the worst possible news for just about any player. The community was devastated. This was a character they were very excited for, that they couldn't wait to interact with, and he was gone as quickly as he had arrived to their lives. Slowly but surely, any remaining hope players had was being removed right in front of them. Like, for example, the Valko channel and the 11 Deep Space official Discord server would be deleted after the update would go live. And after all this time, things were really starting to set in for many players. So we're just getting a stupid rerun of a banner instead of a new love interest, a new main story update, new cards, new myths, new poses, new interactions. This wasn't just about Valko. This was the biggest update of the year, and all of a sudden, it's not coming anymore. And remember how people were now fearful of further censorship now that the game had attracted multiple government agencies? Well, that's exactly what happened. All the love interests had a certain theme of an outfit in which they had numerology on them, numbers that signified different meanings. Well, they were all censored, or just straight up removed.
Which, hold on, I need to go check that because I don't remember that actually being the case. I will say I have not looked at Caleb's or Xavier's in a while because I have both of, I think I have theirs and Raphael's. So I'm gonna go check theirs real quick. Yeah, no, there's no numbers anymore. Crazy. There's absolutely no numbers left.
Look at this, for example. It said 95, now it says gibberish. This was no doubt done to avoid any other 731 issues, and that's simply what happens when you become an element of chaos in China. Many global players and even Chinese players warned these extremely toxic and loud fans in China that any censorship, any removal of something in game will result in even more censorship, and that's exactly
Which
what
is
was
true.
happening. What added more fuel to the fire was that some rumors would start spreading about the role that Valko would have played in.
Which I just want to be clear, like to me, these are all rumors. It's not in the game. And I don't know where people are getting information from. And so I think this is entirely possible, it's not like I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere. So all of these are rumors and theories. So I take all of this with a grain of salt.
The main story, like the fact that he was the one who fixed Caleb's arm, or that he's a friend to Zane. These dynamics between the characters in the story is exactly why people played Love in Deep Space, and there they were, having to watch it get confiscated from them. And so people started drawing up comparisons to another game made by Paper Games called Infinity Nikki, which I made a video about around a year ago. That game had sudden censorship one day, where its tutorial level, its actual lore was changed for no reason, it was retconned, and even though the community had boycotted the game for months and created a large movement around it, Paper Games didn't budge. That terrible tutorial level is still there today. And what was also interesting is that the update that removed the tutorial level came with a lot of bugs. So at this point, it almost seemed like it was a pattern for any game Paper Games had made, and it didn't really inspire optimism. This was really the worst case scenario, but bear in mind, not just for global players, for Chinese players too, even the toxic ones. This Chinese player here would make it very clear in a post they made on Weibo. They'd say that with this outcome, everyone loses. More importantly though, this game was a great outlet to promote overseas players' understanding of Chinese culture, as well as Chinese success. Now, many of the players that were affected globally are not just vowing to boycotting Love in Deep Space, they're vowing to boycott any Chinese game. This player would go very hard on these toxic Chinese players, blaming them for halting the success of a Chinese company and therefore a Chinese cultural export, while also lamenting the fact that this game was pretty much ruined, as well as its reputation in anything made in China. This also led many Love in Deep Space players to look for.
That is fair. It did kind of halt it because Love in Deep Space had actually been doing incredibly well since release, and everything with Valko brought that to a screeching halt. I want to say Love in Deep Space was on like the top 3, maybe top 5 every month since its release, basically. And if I'm wrong, it at least has been top 10. So like it's insane to think about the fact that like this whole incident with Valko literally like took a game that was like cutting edge. It was the only thing like it. It did things that literally no other game did and was making strides just come to a complete stop. And all of that is because of a loud minority in China that boycotted a character that stopped any momentum in this game. Now, do I think that we still would have potentially had some issues had Valko released? Yes. But do I think it would have brought it to a complete and utter halt the way that it has? No, I don't think it would have.
Forward to a competitor's release called Silent Whispers, another 3D high-quality otome game.
Also, let's not get into the fact that Silent Whispers might have something to do with all of this. Hopefully Mujin gets into that.
This trailer right here was released 2 months ago, and all the top comments are just people being like, use this fumble from Love in Deep Space to rise. Or goodbye Love in Deep Space, hello Silent Whisper. Because this game would also be giving them something that they wanted for a long time, a PC client. It seemed like they were actually listening, unlike Paper Games.
Oh.
But it would.
I'll say that is a good thing though, if they did ever give a PC client, because I'm actually kind of upset that like I can only play Love in Deep Space on my phone. Like I've always been upset about that. I'm like, I would like to be able to play it on my computer and actually like stream it for you guys, because I've played Love in Deep Space from like the beginning and I love the game and would really like to talk about it and like have some actual good deep conversations, but no PC client. And I've tried getting it to work on my computer with like BlueStacks and stuff, and it is a pain. Like it just does not work.
Take a lot at this point to fully crush all hope that the community had for Valko releasing. One player would point out, hey, listen, when 3.0 came out and Caleb came out, he didn't come out on the first day of the update. He came around in the second half of the update.
That is
So
true.
in other words, hey, when the second half of this update comes out on July 17th, let's hope that we'll find Valko there waiting for us.
It's currently August 3rd.
What they'd end up finding instead, though, pure and utter disappointment. At this point, 11 Deep Space Chinese revenue was doing horrendously bad, worse than it's ever been. On one day, they'd maybe make $200,000. Now they were making $60,000. Yes, it's still a lot of money, but it's less than half of what they made before.
60,000 is not very much per day for this game. Like, that's abysmal.
This showed that the Chinese audience, genuinely, the majority, the people who actually spend money, were outraged still at Valko not being included. And these were the consumers that mattered. And at the same time, as people were hoping that Valko would come in the second half of the update, they'd get an in-game notice saying that actually the second half would have a heartfelt gift for Zane, a free 5-star memory in which you interact with him. Now, what's interesting is that the official social media accounts wouldn't make this announcement. As I said, it's been a ghost town since the 9th of July. It would only be announced through an in-game notice, okay? So further making their communication style even worse and going against the promise that they made at the end of June saying we'll communicate more with you guys.
Yeah, they didn't post anything about it. It just popped up on the login screen one day. I saw nothing anywhere about it.
What was really interesting, though, was that there would be this Twitter account with the handle Z, with a Zane profile picture, that would leak the trailer for this memory, something that was meant to be posted by the official social media accounts. Once enough people found it, the account would delete itself. Many players pointed out that they didn't like the trailer because the face of the protagonist, which is the character that you create, the woman that you create, would be hidden throughout the trailer. The reason why this is a problem is because many Western players like to self-insert themselves into the game, while Chinese players don't like that. It seemed like even with this trailer, they were still trying to satisfy the most toxic players in China. However, even after all this, there was still hope because something positive out of China would come out on July 15th, 2026. Various media outlets would publish positive reports related to Valko, ones that might be deemed as government affiliated. To be specific, there'd be 5. The first one being Reform Network, the second one being Tencent, the third one being Business Daily, the fourth one being NetEase, and the fifth one being Phoenix News. However, by July 16th, 4 of the 5 would be deleted, and only 1 would remain.
Oh, of
and that would be
course.
the one posted on the website of the National Development and Reform Commission, otherwise known as the NDRC. The 4 others would be paid ads, and it would be mentioned at the end of the articles. I don't know whether it's players wanting Valko back that paid for it, I don't know whether it's Paper Games that did that, but it caused a lot of confusion. The reason why this article was a big
Yikes.
deal was because it was somewhat state-affiliated, and it talked about the efforts being made to bring Valko back globally in a positive manner. It would say, with overseas players continuing to voice their opinions, how can Chinese games translate global feedback into increased content? As of July 15th, the main petition on the overseas petition platforms iPetitions demanding the reinstatement of the romanceable new character Valko in the game 11 Deep Space had garnered over 240,000 signatures and 80,000 comments. Meanwhile, on Change.org's game
Did I sign that? Feel like I remember signing something for Valko, but I really don't remember at this point.
petition page, 3 main petitions related to Valko received 96,000, 21,000, and 5,900 signatures respectively. This 2-week-long cross-platform participation indicates that overseas users' demands have not subsided quickly despite the character's removal. Following the cancellation, overseas players' actions gradually expanded from petitions to fan art, charitable donations, and offline events.
There's so much art of Valko. Like, truthfully, there's so much art of Valko. Like, it pops up on my Twitter, it pops up on my TikTok. Like, there's actually a lot of Valko art here in the West.
Unlike the initial comments and emotional expressions that emerged during the early stages of the game's controversy, the actions of overseas players have now continued beyond the originally scheduled launch date. In the comments section of the main petition page on iPetitions, some users stated that they were inspired by Valko to download, return to, or continue following the game, while others suggested compromises such as delays or modifications before release. This article will then take this further, giving us numbers, saying that 60% of the revenue from the game comes from China, but that the rest comes from global players, highlighting just how important their opinions are. This was significant because up until now, everyone's data points were all over the place. This is a privately held company and they typically don't really reveal the demographic portions, but seeing that this is a government-affiliated publication, these numbers hold more weight. And what really made Valko enjoyers optimistic while reading this article would be one of the final paragraphs, where it would say, whether Valko will be reinstated should be determined by Paper Games based on content quality, market data, and long-term planning. However, the continued growth of overseas petitions has provided a significant signal. When a character can generate signatures, creative works, charitable activities, and offline actions in multiple countries and regions, re-examining and product validation of them is not merely a response to public opinion, but may also be a repricing of global user needs and existing content investment. For a leading product like Love and Deep Space that already has a global user base, turning this feedback into richer content offerings and more refined overseas operational capabilities is perhaps more valuable than letting related demands remain outside the game in the long run. So for many Western players, this was as if the Chinese government was telling Paper Games, hey, whether you want to keep shooting yourself in the foot or not, that's just up to you, we don't really care. But you should probably reinstate him. So as I said, for many, this article was a celebration, like, oh my god, our efforts are actually doing something. And they kind of are. This article acknowledged all the good things.
Which is so surprising, because like it's kind of known that if a game is Chinese-based, they really only listen to China. Like we saw that quite often with Genshin. I want to say like Noviet, I want to say Sino, Zhongli. Like those are the three that like come to mind really quickly. Did Farina have something? Either way, I can name 3 characters right offhand that Chinese characters did not like, spoke up about, and they got changed. And that's kind of been the same way with Paper Games and with Love and Deep Space as well, to where it's like, you know, if we've wanted anything, if we've said anything, like it's kind of been noticeable that like they really only listen to China. And so like for them to actually start hearing the voices of global is really crazy.
They were doing. Like these news were reaching China, which was wonderful. At the same time, it also see Chinese government agencies reminding people that malicious reviews, harming the reputation of businesses, online harassment, use of bots, paid accounts, AI-generated posts are against the law. So again, to many, this felt like they were directing this towards people who engaged in this behavior against Love and Deep Space, and that they were about to get in trouble with the law. This again signaled to people that, hey, maybe things are finally calming down. Some Chinese players would even use a VPN to get on Twitter to thank overseas players for the positive engagement they were bringing to the game and to Valko. Like this post saying, overseas sisters, without you all, none of this would be possible. Honestly, it was very wholesome. It was wonderful how a community so large could work together regardless of borders or distance or culture. But of course, in parallel, the toxic Chinese players had a movement of their own.
I'm not surprised.
There was coordinated effort on Chinese social media to counter any positive news coming out from Valko fans. But we just read a government-affiliated publication just highlight these positive things, so I don't know if it's working that well. When it came to Love and Deep Space though, as I said, they had a total media blackout. The only thing they had said ever since the July 9th update post would be a Facebook reply about winners of some giveaway or something, or competition.
Of course.
Here, they'd indicate that they were going to post again on July 29th talking about the winners, while of course getting like 36 angry reactions. Does this mean that their media blackout will last until the 29th and then they'll post again regularly, maybe updating the community? Who knows? But so far, as I said, total media blackout, even with a new free memory coming out in-game, still nothing, and no trailer as well, of course.
Yeah.
So look, overall, the ball was now in the court of Paper Games. Are they actually going to bring back Valko? Or are they going to listen to this disgusting, toxic side of their community and throw their global community that's willing to donate to charities in Valko's name under the bus? It remains to be seen. But honestly, seeing that they had made the terrible decision of removing Infinity Nikki's amazing tutorial and backstory and refused to change it even after massive backlash and a big boycott, I just don't know if this developer is capable of listening to the community on such major issues. This also might truly be out of their hands. This might be out of their control completely, but we don't have proof. We can only assume on what's going on behind the scenes, and I prefer not to assume. And I do hope that Valko is brought back to this game. If you had to ask me though, I'm not very optimistic, but hey, seeing that this community
unfortunately,
has been very
I'm not either,
and donating to so many amazing causes, you know what? I'll change my mind and be optimistic too. Let's hope for the best, because if that happens, it'll be a wonderful story that will be never forgotten on the internet. And with that, I want to thank my wonderful community for making this very comprehensive Google Doc about the entire incident involving Valko.
Amazing.
With sections like speculations, a glossary for people who have no idea about the game and the different terms used, memes, Twitter links. I'd even asked them to do this. They just did it by themselves because they're so passionate about this game and the community. So thank you to I, Dea, Doc, Jin, Helianthus, Laurel Doll, Mimi, Ray, Red Rose, Sen, Starfall, Watt, and Woof. You guys are the best. And if you want to propose topics for me to talk about in my videos, or just talk about
that
different
might be
topics with
the end of
like-minded individuals, then
his
definitely join my
actual
Discord
video.
server.
So
Thank you so much for
we'll
watching.
see.
Until
Okay, great. So I think this is the end of him talking. So we're gonna not like wrap up because I actually want to go look, because I did tell you guys that there is some stuff that I know of, because I wanted to show you guys the actual like how it dropped, because it's crazy. It's absolutely insane like how much this game dropped within a month. Like, just to show you guys, it literally dropped. It lost over 75% of its revenue this past month. It went from 40 million to 10 million. Like, it's absolutely insane how much Love and Deep Space lost just this past month with not releasing Valko. But like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane like how much like you can actually just watch like Love and Deep Space like fall down the ranks, because again, it's one of those that it's like I am pretty sure that they've been top 3 or top 5 or even top 10 since their release in January of 24. And for them to like fall like this is absolutely insane. So we can see this is the 12th. This is when people start realizing that, oh, Valko's not really coming. He's not coming. He's not going to be released and stuff like that. And so you're going to watch Love and Deep Space start dropping at this point, and somebody else starts picking up. So it's not one of the very bottom few, but at the same time, like, it's dropped. It's out of 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6th. It's 6th by the end of this video. By July 30th, it is 6th, when it's been leading. It has been a top leading Otome game for the last 2 years at this point. But yeah, 10 million all the way down here. They're in 16th. Like, crazy. Like, I just can't believe the way that this happened. I'm just going to take these off. But it is absolutely just, it's just insane to me to think that like they released this character. They said that like he was, you know, coming out as the 6th love interest and stuff like that. And some people were like super excited for him, and other people were like, oh my gosh, I hate him, get rid of him. And the fact that like Paper Games slash like Infold like buckled to that is crazy to me. I've literally never witnessed it. I've never witnessed a game company just be like, yep. I mean, Mujin did a great job covering all of it. I think that he got all of the, you know, hotspots and stuff like that. I will say I did mention something really quickly in there about Silent Whispers. It is actually theorized, and there's been some hearsay about the fact that Silent Whispers might have actually been a part of bringing down Infold and stirring up some of this chaos, which, like, I mean, it makes sense. They would be the direct competitor to Love and Deep Space. But at the same time, like, again, that is hearsay. It is alleged. I don't know anything for certain. There's been, you know, rumors online and stuff like that. If that is the case, be crazy. But again, entirely alleged. Do not know anything for certain. It's just been said on the internet. Wow. I don't know what else to really say. Honestly, I really do hope that Infold just takes a little bit of time, goes over some stuff on Valko, and then does release him later and ignores that loud minority, because it does seem like there is a vast majority that actually wants Valko to be released in the game. So I do hope that they bring Valko back. I hope that they work on him a little bit more, because it was very obvious that he was kind of using a lot of animations and pieces of the other 5 love interests, which I know a lot of people didn't like. I know I personally also didn't like it. But anyways, I do hope that we get to see something come up here in just the next couple of months. Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for things. I'll be interested to see where it goes. On that note, thank you for watching all 3 parts with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that I gave you a little bit of perspective from a person who's been playing the game pretty consistently since early release. I really hope that things kind of settle down and work out the best way possible. I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.